Jagga.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Well, our government wants to see an economy that works for all Australians. People in our communities deserve to have good jobs with the security, pay fairness and proper protections that are part of good jobs. And to achieve this, we need laws that are fit for purpose and that meet the needs of Australians today. And that is what this bill is designed to do. This bill will fix the bargaining system and it will help to get wages moving again. And this was a key plank that our government fought for in the election campaign, and it is a key plank that we will deliver on now. For people in my community, in professions like healthcare, in aged care, in disability support, in early childcare support, this bill is designed to get them the pay rise they deserve. In aged care in my community, across Jagga, we have something like 30 aged care service providers, residential care, home care, another form of care. And I talk to the people who work in these industries, and they know it's important work they do, but they know it's also not easy work. When I speak to aged care workers, they tell me they love what they do. They love getting to know the people they support, their partners, the families that come in with that person. They love being an important part of their circle. The care takes many forms. It's not just helping an older person get up and about. It's about the friendships you make that mean for an older person they feel a bit less alone and feel more connected to the wider world. So it's complex work. It's important work. But for too long, it's been under-recognised. We have not recognised the importance of the people who work in this vital sector to make sure that they are there for older people and for all of us in our community. They have had to wait far too long for a pay rise. And in fact, it took a Royal Commission. It took a government that was prepared to back them in to get their pay rise for aged care workers to get it. So if you need an example of how wages haven't been moving in this country, if you need an example about how those on the opposite side left low-paid workers behind, aged care workers is an excellent example. So another industry I will talk about in relation to this bill is early childhood education. There are 135 childcare providers in Jagga, a lot of centres with a lot of educators supporting a lot of local kids and families. And the workers and the educators at these centres also do really important, essential work. And again, for too long, we have undervalued this work. We have pretended that it is not complex, that it is not important to be the person responsible for helping to bring up the smallest people in our community, that it is not important work to be guiding the next generation. This is vital work. And yet we have not recognised this important work with the wages and the conditions that they should have. And the reason we haven't done this is simply that the system is not set up to deliver these workers a pay rise. These people, who are mainly women working in a heavily feminised industry, have not been getting the pay rises they deserve. We saw the situation last year, as we've seen highlighted by the minister, where early childhood educators were not able to get a pay rise because they couldn't find an appropriate male comparator group. Because, of course, there is no male comparator group. Where's the men working in early education? Love to see some, but they're not there at the moment, mainly because wages are too low. So we're in an impossible bind here that contributed to these early educators missing out on a pay rise. This bill aims to reverse that. It will reverse the decades of really unfair outcomes for women workers in our community. Women who are holding up the caring economy will be supported by this bill to get the pay rises they deserve. So this bill, the changes in this bill, take away that need to find a male comparator group. They make it clear that sex discrimination is not necessary to establish that a certain type of work is undervalued. These changes will enable better access to bargaining for sectors like early childhood education and aged care. It will help workers to negotiate better pay and conditions, and that is something that everyone in this House should regard as a win. We have spent a pandemic telling the women working in these areas that they are essential workers. We have spent a pandemic holding them up and saying, you've kept us going. Well, the very least that people in this House could do is make sure that these people get a pay rise. These industries have been undervalued, it is unfair, and it is something that we have to fix. And so I think it is incumbent on all of us in this place to realise that for too long we've failed in this space. We've had 10 years of drift and denial, an almost willful ignorance of the reality workers in our country were facing. And now we seem to see that those opposite continue to want to deny that people in these sectors, women in these sectors, are underpaid. Under those opposite, we saw that wages were kept low in what seemed to be a deliberate design feature. In fact, at one point I believe was called out as a deliberate design feature of the system. And rather than bringing people together, rather than trying to make sure that we're getting workers, employees and industry representatives on the same page, what we've seen from those opposite is a desire to increase conflict. We've seen a rise in insecure work. We've seen that for more households, they don't know what their income will look like for the week because their job is insecure, and they're doing all of this in a time when we know that cost of living is increasing. So cost of living is increasing, but wages are not increasing. Employment is low, but wages are still not increasing. And yet it seems that for years and years we've been told, well, if you want to get wages moving again, you just need to wait until employment is low. Yeah. Well, employment is low, and that hasn't happened. So that magic pudding isn't really a magic pudding. That's not going to happen. This government has recognised that. We've recognised that you can't just rely on employment being low for wages to magically get rising. We've recognised that this is the work of government to make sure that people who are in insecure work, in low-paid industries who have missed out on the benefits of pay rises, are finally noticed and their needs addressed. We've noticed the cost of living pressures that people across our communities are facing. They are very real, and I know it is not easy for a lot of people in my community at the moment. And we know that a decade of wage stagnation has absolutely contributed to those cost of living pressures. In a situation where inflation is running at more than 7% and wages are about 2.5%, it is absolutely incumbent on the government and on everyone in this place to act. We have to find ways to get wages moving again, and that is a huge part of what we are aiming to achieve with this bill. The Australian people were clear at the election. They've had enough of the previous approach to wages. They have seen that their wages haven't gone up as they should have over the past decade. They do want a change. They want this place to be on their side, to be backing in the wage increases they deserve. And so I urge everyone in this place to take that very seriously as we debate this bill and as we go forward. Deputy Speaker, I want to see better conditions for people in my community and in communities across Australia who deserve better. Whether they're a worker in a sector that will benefit from this bill, whether they're someone who has a family member in a sector, that person who helps to pay the bills in their household, or if they're someone who benefits from the work people do in that sector. I know people in Jagga Jagga value industries like early childhood education, like aged care, like healthcare. The parents who take their kids down to childcare, they know the connections that those educators are making with their children. They know that's important work. They know the impact that has on their child every single day. They want to see those workers get the pay rise they deserve and that they've been denied for far too long. Our early childhood educators create the environment to help our kids grow and develop and to start on their education journey, and we cannot recognise it highly enough. Aged care, as I said, another area where we in the past have not recognised the key work that the workers in those industries have done and that it took our government to deliver on a pay rise for them. After too long, these workers deserve better pay and conditions. We need this bill as a strong foundation to continue to build a more equitable and fair system across our country for all of our communities. This is good for workers, it's good for the economy, it will be good for Australia, and I commend the bill to the House.